Hi everyone, it's Heidi from flutterbyheidi.co.uk. I'm Heidi Smith. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator based in the United Kingdom, and I love making fun folds and boxes, and I do a bit of simple stamping as well. But to be honest with you, even a fun fold, even if you're a beginner, you can do it. So that's what I try and show you, that there are things that you can make that just add an extra wow. But what I am trying to challenge myself to do this year is do a little bit more with my sketch, with my fellow challengers, and get myself out there a little bit more. And to be honest with you, failed. I made this card, I got it ready to share, and you know what? I completely forgot about it. I'm blaming the drugs, and I don't mean anything serious. I had an awful toothache, so I was dosed up on really high, strong painkillers. I've got a bit of an abscess under a tooth, and I forgot to blog. So this is for my friends in the lovely, inspiring challenge. We have a sketch challenge, and I thought I'd explain kind of how I deal with sketch challenges. I don't always find them easy. So what I do is I take some scrap card and I take the sketch and I kind of recreate it with pieces of card. Then I can move them around, and I can then adjust the sizing, you know, add extra bits, change them around. But yeah, so that's what I do, and I say it's just scrap card. As a demonstrator, I tend not to use the card that has retired once it's gone, so I put it to one side, and if I haven't used it after sort of like 12 months, then I start using it for my samples. So that's the sketch challenge that we had. We could choose any shape for this, but to be honest with you, I just went with the standard circle because I have the punches. Circles are in most people's stash, but obviously being geometric, it could look quite nice. I did think afterwards would have looked quite nice with one of our new basic shapes dies. That would have fitted quite well. Maybe this one here. As you can see there, so it's a nice shape, and that's about the same size. So, you know, you can play around with these quite a bit. And for this one, rather than a square at the back, I decided my layer there, because I kind of said that's a layer, was actually going to be this ribbon. This is the ribbon that I haven't used very much of. It reminds me of a bandage, that's why. But I thought, right, I've got to start using some of this ribbon, so that's what I've done. I've used some of the ribbon there as a layer, and I thought it was a great chance to actually use our lovely new Stampin' blends in skin tones, and they call them skin tones, and I don't do that many images with sort of people, and they are fabulous for that. I have to say, there's some great tutorials out there, but I thought they reminded me of like a sepia print, and I thought it was rather nice to kind of create with the lovely In the Moment stamp set, which is this one here, to create this image. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll just sort of go through with you what the different ones are that I've used as we go along. Okay, so with my blends, what I do is I have created a label. If anybody wants it, just let me know. It's just some extra bits on a sheet of A4 that you can print off, which have got the numbers on the end. So I just find them easier to kind of refer to. So 100 is the darkest, 1000 is the lightest. Lovely skin tones. Okay, so let's go. Oh, and the other ones in there that I keep with that are my bronze tone, because that's kind of my neutral. So my bronze, my colour lifter, I think that's my ivory, my dark basic black, because I never got round to buying the light, so I have got a bit of a gap there with my basic black. So I'll stop wittering now. Here's my card. You can see I've just stamped one of the other images on the inside in some soft suede just to add to it, but I just think it's a lovely card that you could send to a friend. So I've taken a card base. This is just standard half a sheet of A4, and I always trim mine down to 29. I just like to have it, make it easy for myself with half centimetre measurements. So what you want is a standard A4 card base, which I'm just going to do there. Scored in half at 14.5. So there's our card base. I want a layer for the inside, which is 10 by 14 centimetres. And then the rest of the layers I have in fact cut, or I will cut as we go along. So with this one, we want a piece of, this is soft suede, and I want it to be 14.5 by 5 centimetres. Like so. My next layer that I wanted, I used early I wanted some early espresso, and I've gone for 8 by 8 centimetres here. So my layer that I want, I'm not going to trim down just yet. I'm going to stamp my image first to make sure I can kind of centre it, but you will want to trim it down to 7.5 by 7.5. I've then just punched a 2-inch circle, and I've then got literally just some scraps. I kind of this is about 1 centimetre wide, and this one is about, there you go, sort of just over 2 centimetres wide, by sort of about 3 inches, because again you're going to trim those down. So let's get started with our image first of all. Put our pieces to one side. Okay. Right. Oh, and my piece of ribbon I've kind of cut about 15 centimetres, about 6 inches, and just folded in half. So the first thing we're going to do is actually to use my lovely brick and mortar embossing folder. This is a great one for you to use. Things to note, there is a line on here that helps you get it square. So I line that up on the inside, then close my folder, and then don't forget to run this through, but hinged edge first. That way your folders will last much longer, and you'll end up with a nice embossed image. And these 3D folders are fantastic. If you've got the new cut and emboss machines, great. If not, you'll need an adapter for these thicker ones. But look at the texture in that already. It is carrying over. There are quite a few folders which won't be carrying over, so to be honest with you, if there's ones that you like, I would get them now while you can. I'm now going to stamp my main image in Memento. I'm going to be colouring with Stampin blends, alcohol based, so I want a non-alcohol based outline. I mean, if you've got you know, a dark brown in this, I have, you know, they do come in other colours, then yeah, use that. I haven't, but by the time it's coloured you won't notice. And I'm going to just pop that, and I'm using my kind of block to try as much as I can to line that up. So about there. Okay, in fact, not bad for me. I don't do straight. Well, I say I don't do straight. Yeah, it gets a bit interesting. My stamping sometimes. Okay, so let's start with the trousers. So the trousers, I'm using number 300, number 400. So first thing is to not to do that, is to use my lighter one to put the base colour down. So just gently colour in. And I come in with my bullet tip then, and all of those areas where you've got kind of the lines added in, and maybe the pocket as well, I add in. And actually I'm going to where you've got some shadow as well, so it'll generally be a little bit darker on the underneath of the trouser, so I just add a little bit in there, and then just come in and blend over the top of those with your lighter one. Okay. And then my top is 800 and 700, so 700 is my first one. It's my lighter colour. And it's just double checking with all of these. It's always having a quick look and seeing where it is. And I've done the same again. I'm kind of getting used to these. So the lower the number, the darker the colour. No, that's okay. Oh, I was right. Oh. So again, just working out which bits would be a little bit darker. And I have done a colour chart on these as well, just to kind of get so most of the tones are like when they're next to each other. I probably, and also when they're further away, I probably need to do a bit more work on those. The cushion I'm actually going to use my bronze for, and that's just a single kind of colour. I might actually come in with something a little darker there. And again with these sepia ones, it's kind of just having a look at what colours, you know, you're not going to put, you want to put two that are too similar together, but obviously the whole idea is that it is sort of tonal. The other thing I'm going to use the bronze for was I'm going to use it for a hair. No, okay. So now let's do the window. So the window frame, I'm using the very darkest colour. I'm just going to use the bullet point. And this is kind of really almost, this is almost like the early espresso frame colour for this frame. And again, you know, so these do come to life by the time you've added in a bit of shading. And I'm just coming in here as well. Now I tried to kind of do almost like a wood grain effect on my first one. It wasn't as successful as it might have been, so we'll see how it works out on this one. So the wood I've used the number 100 for that. I'm going to use 400 and 600 for the hair. So here we go. So 400 obviously is the lighter one. No, 400 is the darker one, 600 is the lighter one. So I'm using the lighter one first. And kind of putting darker tones through. Because obviously whilst normally you'd obviously put highlights in, what you can do is always come out a little bit more, but it just adds a little bit of tone in there. Now for the skin, I'm using one of our lightest ones in this instance, which is 900. And again, the bullet tip for this. What I might do is come through with the 1000 actually, and almost use that as a bit of a colour lifter. Or actually, I might actually use the colour lifter. So the colour lifter, it doesn't actually take the colour off. I always say it sort of pushes the colour into the card, so it gives the effect of lightening it. And it's always useful to have to hand. The mug I'm going to use again, probably one of the darker ones. Probably let's have a look at them at 300 probably. So go just. And then sort of the bench, let's have a look. I think we're going to go, I'm actually going to go, I can't remember, I didn't make a note of what I did, so let's go with 400. Is that the same as the trousers though? That's what I was trying to avoid. Yes, it's the darker shade. So if I put the darker shade in first, and then I'm actually going to come in probably with 700 then. There we go. Yes, that's actually a better effect than I had previously, just blending those two together. And then the glass, I used the ivory in the colour lifter. So again, grabbing all of these, so I came in just in the corners of all of these. You can see there. And just then use my colour lifter in here somewhere to kind of go over, and obviously it hasn't got any colour to it, but it will just soften those edges and give you sort of a slightly different sort of feel to it. Okay. So now that we've done our colouring, I'm just going to trim that down. And if you remember, I said that this one was 8 by 8. So we're going to just take this down to 7 by 7. So just have a look. I want sort of fairly more even spacing. So I'm happy with the spacing on the bottom, which is good because I can just get rid of that little bit. And just perhaps just a touch more off there, because I want to kind of snuggle that in to the side. And then we're simply going to layer up. So I'm popping this flat onto my early espresso. Oh, and I've actually cut it too small, clearly by the looks of it. Didn't measure. I cut it to 7 by 7, not 7.5 by 7.5. Okay, so easy done. So what we do is make this one 7.5 by 7.5. You could have a wider border if you wanted to. But there we go. Okay. Now again, adding any layers which I always use wet glue, because it just gives a little bit more adhesion onto the front of the card. Open your card up as well, that will help you. And I'm just coming in with kind of probably about just less than 1/2 centimetre on there. This layer is obviously going to be popped up, obviously, well not obviously at all, but obvious to me. I'm going to pop this up on some dimensionals just to give that a bit of lift, so a bit of texture, a bit of lift. I grabbed my mini dimensionals because I couldn't see my sheet of big dimensionals. There we go. You see it now. And so that goes on next. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of positioning that so there's an even border sort of all the way around. So it makes it fairly central for that particular image. Things I've got left to do is to stamp on my sentiment sort of circle, and to stamp on my other image. So I'm going to do my first bit, which is to do my relax. So with this, I'm going to use early espresso. And to just make sure I only stamp on that edge, I'm just going to put a bit of post-it note. Now I've got some tape, but if that's purely because that was to hand. A post-it note is actually easier, but you just want to cover up the rest of that sentiment. You don't want to get ink on there. And just make sure that with this sentiment, where obviously sometimes it pokes down, you might need to just kind of, when I say pokes down, basically the sentiment comes down into the larger word. So just kind of, there we go, just make sure that bit. So you're still going to get your ink onto your word. There we go. So my relax is now nicely, the rest of the sentiment is covered up. My relax is all ready to go. I can now ink that up quite easily with an ink pad. Now if you wanted to, you could colour with a marker pen as well. That's the other alternative for you. I've got a bit of a smudge on that one, so I'm hoping my sentiment will cover that up. Now the next thing is not to forget to take your post-it note tape off and then stand over and relax. Okay. Now if you're at all unhappy, you can always trim that down. Once I've stamped it, I'm just going to trim that very slightly. Go. And then I'm going to take the end of that, trim it down, and take the end with my scissors. So I'm just going to kind of, I almost want as much space on the one end as I have with my sentiment on the other to try and give it some balance. And I'm just cutting down probably about 1 centimetre and cutting my flag in like so. I'm going to create my flag on my other piece as well. And then that is going to be glued onto the back there. So I'm just going to run my Stampin' Seal Plus down the back and just add that as well. Then I can trim, like so. And now I want to stamp my sentiment, my whole sentiment onto here. So I can just bring that back in with my early espresso. And just centre that in. And by putting that word just on its own, it just helps create a little bit of focus, because you really want to say, you really want to relax. So I'm just going to pop my dimensionals on the back there. Well supported, so sort of 3 dimensionals on the back. I'm going to pop dimensionals on the back of my sentiment, but I'm just going to do it on that bottom section. So I want to pop it there, and another couple, because the top half is going to be supported on my sort of frame that I've got. So that's going to come in here. So I want to pop my ribbon on the back there as well. So again, for that, I'm actually just, because it's just holding it in place, I'm just going to add a bit of ordinary Stampin' Seal. Seal Plus is great for ribbon. And I'm just going to pop that in between my dimensionals. Okay, I've managed to cover that one up, so that's fine. That'll be used to keep it in place. So I can just stick another one on the back there, like so. So pop that onto the front. Check that my relax, it does. I'm going to take my dimensionals off and pop them on the far end. There we go. There's that straight, reasonably straight. Oh, I'm wittering a lot, aren't I, today? Or perhaps not talking enough. And then I just line that up and add my relax on there. Helps if you take the backs off your dimensionals. And then just to make sure that that's nice and straight. And there we have. Oh, we haven't quite got our card, because what I'm going to do is add my image. In fact, what I might do is use the same image. Well, I know, I'll use the book image. And I'm going to, because I've got it to hand, I'm just going to use my early espresso. But what I'm going to do is to create that kind of watermark, stamp off first, and then just pop my book reader on the side there. Again, it's handy, so add my layer to the inside of my card. And there we have a pair of lovely relaxing cards ready to send. And as I say, if you'd like to purchase any of the new skin tone blends, pop along to my shop at heidismith.stampinup.net. Use the links below this video. Just click on that down arrow on the description bar and you'll find links to all of them there. Or go along to my blog at flutterbyheidi.co.uk. And yeah, have fun. Enjoy your creating. Bye now.